Hey everybody, welcome. Welcome. I hope I'm entertaining enough for you today. This is my very first trip to Sydney. Apparently I came at the worst time, I've been told. The weather is beautiful today, but not the best from what I've been told, but very excited to be here. Today, and thank you Brendan for the wonderful introduction. So I am the founder of ReadWrite Labs and also a partner at EEG, which is what I'm going to be speaking about a little bit today. So a little bit about my background. About a young age of 14, I decided, why go do anything fun like play video games or sports? Instead, I'll start a business. And so at the age of 14, I started my very first business venture and have not stopped since. I've been in the worlds of media to sports and entertainment to the Internet of Things, blockchain, and every other major term you can think of right now. Have a lot of experience not just starting these businesses, but also what makes them successful and what also makes them fail quickly, as we all have some bruises and bandages from our ventures. But as Brendan said, I've also have raised a significant amount of capital. So about 5.5 years ago, I started one of the very first Internet of Things accelerators in the world, and since have helped companies raise over $130 million, along with taking companies public and having exits. With that, you learn a lot of lessons, not just how to raise capital locally in San Francisco, but also anywhere in the world. And since 2015, I've had the pleasure of not just being based in San Francisco, but also traveling the world and going cross-border between the US and Asia and raising capital on both continents, along with Europe as well as South America. And so today I wanted to get a chance to share with you guys a little bit of the tips and tricks on what you can do to not just find ways to meet investors, but also get in the head of an investor. Learn how an investor thinks to therefore get your meeting and hopefully get a check as well and be more successful. And after this, I'm happy. I don't know, do we have time for questions? Okay, cool. So after this, I'm happy to take questions. If you have anything personal about your personal business, and I'm going to need context, just hold it until I get off stage, and then we can chat afterwards. Is Nick in the crowd here, by the way? Good, sir. If anyone hasn't met Nick, definitely have a chance to chat with him. I met him on a cruise last night. He's one of the best entrepreneurs I've met in Sydney thus far. All right, so everybody, if there's one thing to know about raising venture capital, finding investors or approaching investors is very, very easy. As you can see, I'm very light going. Investors are all around you. They're everyday people. However, getting them excited about your business is one of the most challenging things that people have. But at the same time, today as an entrepreneur, it's probably one of the best times to have to actually raise capital. There's never been more options, more opportunities, or more investors than any other time in history right now. So on the screen to the left and to the right, you'll actually see a map of the funding landscape. So today you have the opportunity to fundraise from investors globally. You have the chance to raise from investors that you know, and you also have the chance to raise from investors that you have no idea who they are. Now we have things like equity crowdfunding or syndicates or ICOs, which I'll let someone else talk about, where literally anybody and anybody can put in as little as $10 US and invest in your business. You can now have your community, your customers invest in your company. But most of us are probably wondering about this left side and how to get capital from those groups. First and foremost, it starts with getting out there. I know this may sound like basics for some people, but for others this may be new information. This is also one of the things that is most forgotten. Companies come up to me and say, how do I raise capital? Where do I start? Write me a check. When we ran our accelerator, I had the same thing. Companies would come in, they would join the accelerator and say, I want money now, I need money to survive. Great. Who are you? What's your company? There are super, super easy ways to get out there in the world. Doesn't matter if you're in Sydney, doesn't matter if you're in Hong Kong, you're in the smallest city in the world or the biggest city. These three areas right here, the categories we're going to break down, are the most important three things you can start doing today after I get done talking. Thank you for silencing your phone. Appreciate it. So first, get out there. There are services on the internet that allow you to create a profile, meet investors, access investors, and it is also, as an investor, one of the first places I go to validate whether or not you're a real business. When Nick approached me and said, hey, this is my company, this is what I do, after we engaged and I learned and heard about what he did, I went online to find out if he was on one of these websites, because that, to me, as an investor, is a validation point. F6S, AngelList, Gust, each and every one of these, they're free services with free profiles for you to create. If you're not on one of these, go do it. On the top to the bottom, the top are big global, the bottom are actually more localized as well. So if you're looking to go to Hong Kong, you're looking to go to China, these are some of the profiles that you want to create. Next, seek traction and press. It is easy. It's incredibly easy to get press and traction as a startup. There are a number of podcasts out there. There are a number of blogs. There are a number of publications that just want to meet great companies. Podcasts are one of the best ways you can actually get your voice and your company out there in the world. You know, the Jay Kim Show, for instance. Jay Kim is here in the audience, so if you're looking to get on the Jay Kim Show, he's in the back row, center aisle. You can hit him up afterwards. But podcasts, press, and conferences like StartCon. When I first approached investors, first time I raised from a VC and then an angel, was actually due to a pitch competition I went to. I had nothing else to do on a Wednesday night, so I was in Los Angeles. I went to a pitch competition. 10 startups later, I won and got a chance to sit and ask for $250,000 cash from one of the most prominent angel investors today, which then led me to a meeting to ask for $500,000 from one of the biggest venture capitalists in the United States and in the world today as well. All because I went to a small little tiny meetup. So if you're looking how to get out there, start with these meetups, start with big conferences, attend and meet people. And last but not least, and I swear to you, if anyone in this crowd I meet today tells me this last category that you are stealth, I will turn and walk away and talk to the next person. And you all laugh, but you'll be shocked at how many times it happens. I guarantee you today that you are not the very first to have the idea that you have. There is no reason to be stealth. There is definitely a reason to hold close some of the IP or good ideas that you have, but the company that you're looking to build, the company you want to raise money, do not be stealth. If you are stealth and come to me and say, I'm working on something very secretive, and by the way, I'd love to raise some capital for you. Again, I will walk away and I will go hang out with Nick and I will hear about his company. It is the quickest way to kill your company and the quickest way for you to lose your dreams. Do not be stealth. Get out there. It's all about execution. If you follow yourself of getting out there, you start to get traction, you start to press, you start to build a team, you start to actually execute, you will have a higher chance of success than being stealth. Now, how to approach investors. Again, we're everywhere. Literally, we're people. Nick was hanging out with a bunch of us last night. He's getting called out because he had to hang out with me for an hour and a half last night. So Nick, one of the things he told me was like, man, you guys are real people. Yeah, we are, buddy. We're real people. We just look at companies and we invest in companies and we help companies grow. Other than that, we're the same as you. And some of us have started companies. They've either been successful or they've failed. We understand what it's like to go through those hardships. So we're very, very approachable. But if you are looking for tips of how to find investors, number one, go to your network, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's advisors, whether it's whomever you know, your best friend, and ask for a warm introduction. Warm introductions are one of the best ways to get connected to an investor. Me sitting on here as an investor to you today, a warm introduction will put you a step or more ahead of anybody else I'm looking at, because you're coming from someone trusted. You're coming from someone that's been vetted, that's someone that has understood what you do and thinks that it would be beneficial to me. Next, again, attend community and pitch events just like this. Or join an incubator, an accelerator, or a co-working space. Now, again, I have started and I have founded, I have mentored, I have worked in many of those programs. And I can tell you which are good, which are bad, and why it's beneficial to you. But for today's purposes, if you're looking to raise capital, they are a great source of introductions. And they will be a huge validator to you as you build your business. And what's great from an investor's perspective, if you join one of these programs, is we get to watch you grow. We also know that you're going to have certain resources and certain support systems that will actually increase your chances of success. And there's tons of programs locally and globally that can help. But above all, if you leave today with one thing being remembered from my speech, build relationships. Do not walk up to an investor, do not walk up to a potential investor and ask for a check the first time you meet. And I hear a little snickering, but I can tell you right now it happens more often than you think. Build a relationship. Be patient. Fundraising takes a lot of time. If you are looking to get a check written the next day after you first met someone, I hope you've known them for a very long time. Or you literally have something that no one has ever done before and it is pixie dust and everyone wants it. But build the relationship. And if you build the relationship, not only will they hopefully invest in your company, but will help grow and make other investments along the way. So now we know how to find investors. One and done, easy peasy. Did someone say they weren't sure? Siri. Thank you, Siri, for chiming into my speech. I'll be with you later. All right, so now that everybody but Siri understands how to approach investors, let's talk about getting investors excited. So now let's jump into the mindset of an investor. As an investor, we look at many different things, but there's 4 common pieces or 4 common elements that we all look for in every single company, and every single company is judged on. Number 1, your product. Is your product different? Is it affordable? And can it scale? If your product does not scale, you're going to get a lot of questions. If your product is not different from your competitor, why should I invest? If your product costs 10x more than your competitor but does not provide any additional features, why should I invest? So product is number 1. Second is market. We're looking for large, open markets, markets that are looking for new opportunities and new companies to come in with customer demand. Too many companies and too many founders go out to solve problems that there's 1, not a market for, and 2, there's no real demand. It's a great hobby. It's not a company that's going to get funded. 3, traction. I want to see that you've done something other than create an idea. I want to see that you have growth, that you're starting to bring on customers. Customers are starting to pay. You've got sales, you've got revenue, you've got partnerships. Whatever it is, I want to see traction in your company. A great story is I actually went to go raise $1 million for a company, sat with this VC, and said, hey, I got traction. I got users. First thing the investor said was, great, how many users? I said, thousands. Perfect. How many have converted to pay $1? None? Said, okay, come back to me when someone has. So I came back to him. Said, hey, people now not just pay $1, they'll pay $10. Perfect. Now let's start talking. And the point that I learned very quickly, in summary, was that it wasn't just traction that I had, but it was continued traction. It was growth. It was conversion of someone willing to pay for my product and show further validation of what I had built. And 4, and probably the most important, and I'll call out Nick again because he's still sitting in the front row. So sorry, buddy. Is team. I want to invest in a team that has a little bit of experience in the area that they're building. That is the ones that can actually execute and get the job done. But above all else, can read the market, know when to adjust, and weather through the toughest of storms. This is very hard to judge both as a founder whether you're going to be ready for that, but also as an investor if you are the one. So when you do go to approach, and we're going to get to this in just a few minutes here, know your market. Understand where the market is the moment you walk into a meeting, not where it was a year ago. That will show me that this person understands what's happening. And when I start to ask questions about what if, what this, what that, have responses for that. Now that we know the few elements, story. Every investor wants to know how you got to where you are. They want to know the journey. Where did things come from? Why are you so passionate about this crazy idea to give up everything to go in and start this business? What is your story? Make it exciting, make it compelling. It's very easy. It's very easy to do. Show your passion and why you've chosen to give everything up. Next, make sure you can pass this test. This is one of the most exciting and fun games to play at a dinner party, especially if you've got a little bit of wine or beer around the table. But it's what I call the 575 test. You need to be able to pitch your company such that a 5-year-old child or a 75-year-old grandmother can understand it. If you're able to accomplish this, it sounds easy, but it's actually a lot harder than you think. If you're able to accomplish this, you are then ready to start going to approach investors. You are ready to give that elevator pitch no matter where you are at any time, anywhere in the world, because you will be able to speak to your product without super technical jargon that only you know, and instead we'll be able to speak in terms that anybody can understand and anybody can grasp. And I actually did this with an accelerator. I went to my poor little niece and said, hey, this is what I do. I said, I help people build a business. Now, my 4-year-old niece doesn't necessarily know what the inner workings of a business is, but she understands a business. She goes to a store. She understands it's a store. Something that she could relate to very quickly and easily. Now, when I went to my grandmother, I got asked a lot more questions. When are you getting paid? What's happening? How are you? Are you healthy? Do you need dinner? Like, yes, Grandma. All of the above, but dinner first. And then I said, this is what I do. I actually help people build their business around the world and in some cases help them raise money. She's like, great, dinner's ready. I'm like, okay, good, I've passed that test. So try this at home tonight. Try it today. Try it with me. Try it with anybody. See if you can pass a test such that a 5-year-old child or a 75-year-old grandmother can understand what you do. Now, let's get in the last little bit here of how to pitch your product. There's 100 different ways to pitch your company. Everyone's going to have something different, but these are the elements that you need to make sure you have. After seeing thousands upon thousands of pitches and applications, I can tell you right now that not everybody knows how to pitch a company in this way. There are 12 slides you need to have, or 12 pieces of information downloaded in your brain that you can, on command, tell me as an investor. If you cannot, we can have a side conversation. But all of these elements is what you need to have included when you go to start talking to investors. And most people will tell you, well, your slide presentation needs to be 10 slides, it needs to be 18, it needs to be 20. It needs to start with 12 slides. These 12 slides will be the foundation of your business plan, foundation of your pitch presentation, and the foundation of what you will build your company on. Sadly, there are 3 very key slides that are constantly forgotten about. Constantly. It's shocking. Financials. I want to understand how your business is not just going to make money, but also how is it going to grow? How much money do you expect to generate in the first year, second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year? Now, year 1 and year 2, I'm going to take a lot of look at. I'm really going to dive into. Years 3 to 5, I understand our projections. But take time to think about how much money you're going to generate. What is this going to look like over a 5-year period? Business model. Should be the most obvious of all of these, right? Pitching your product, you should tell me how you're going to make money. It's one of the most commonly forgotten slides. I don't care what your product is. I don't care how great your team is. I don't care how great the opportunity is. I want to know how you make money. Nick, how are you going to pay your team? How are you going to afford offices? How are you going to afford services? How are you going to afford the servers that you have to run your app on? I need to understand that, and so does every other investor. Use case. How is someone going to actually use your product? It's great that you have the most magical unicorn solution in the world, but how does someone use it? Tell me. These 12 slides right here are the slides you want to pay attention to and you want to make sure you have. And today, if you come up and talk to me, and Nick's already had to go through this, but each and every one of you should be able to answer any of these questions if I pull them out. So in summary, when marketing to investors and getting yourself out there anywhere in the world, anywhere, whether it's here in Sydney, it's Paris, it's New York, it doesn't matter where, take time to research who is investing in your space and who could be a potential investor for you. Too many times, companies and founders go out to raise money and they say, oh, I just can't raise. I've talked to 100 people. It's exhausting. Are you talking to the right 100 people? Do the 100 people you're even talking to write the check size? Do they invest in your industry? Do they have any actual support they can provide you if they do write a check? Do your research. There's plenty of websites, AngelList, Crunchbase. There's several out there that will help give you this kind of information. Be prepared. Go through those slides we talked about for your pitch deck. Go through and listen to all the questions other people have asked and know how to answer them. Understand your market, where the market is and where it's going and where it's come from. And lastly, be patient. Fundraising does not happen overnight. There's only a handful of stories I can tell you where it has. It generally takes anywhere from 4 to 6 plus months to raise your round of funding. If you are in dire need of cash, don't rely on fundraising as your full source of survival. Prepare for this. Start preparing a few months before your 4 to 6 months process. Trust me, it will do you wonders. And for those incubators and accelerators, if you guys are looking for which programs to join, we actually built a landscape of about 200 different incubators and accelerators around the world. If you're in the Internet of Things, so blockchain, energy, automotive, et cetera, and there's plenty of resources out there for you guys. Again, and I'll turn this back because I saw a few people taking pictures. Again, oh wow, a lot more people just took pictures. There's a QR code you can scan if you'd like a copy. Again, today, as you walk away, 1, build relationships. Build strong relationships with your potential investors to make sure that they are the people you want in your company and they are someone that can help weather the storms with you that will eventually come as your company grows. Do your research, be prepared, above all, be patient. Thank you guys very much.
Carl Ellicott, everybody. So, Carl, we've got about 5 minutes. We
Cool.
can ask a couple of questions.
Cool.
Anyone got any hands? I think we do about 3 questions. So, if someone want to raise a hand, can we send that microphone back? We just keep passing that back. So, look, I'll kick it off, Carl.
Yeah.
So there was
except Nick can ask
I think
questions.
Nick's done,
yeah,
man.
Nick's done.
I don't know who he is, but anyway. So, there was a joke floating around in 2001 during the first dot-com boom.
Yep.
The joke went something like, 1 million people walked into a bar, no one bought a drink, the bar was considered a great success. How savvy are investors today about what is real traction and not just, users or,
It's a great question. It's actually something we're seeing more heavily leaned on than in the past. Because I do have those similar stories and know those experiences where people just got money because they just got money. Today, investors are actually harder on user metrics and what's really happening because they've been burned a lot in the past. Yeah. A good example is if you're building something in hardware, just because you have a bunch of crowdfunding fans that have supported your project does not mean you have real traction. Yeah. They want to see actual tangible sales and not just a few months of sales. They want to see many quarters of sales. And that's something that when about 4 years ago, people would just invest in hardware companies to invest because they had hundreds to thousands of different crowdfunding users. Today, it's like, well, wait a second. Will your product survive beyond your fans? So it's definitely something that's looked at very hard.
Okay, cool. First question, Ben.
Thanks, Ben.
Hey, Ben, welcome. Thanks for
You're
flying
on.
up.
Hello.
You're on.
Oh, it is working. Okay, thanks, Brendan. Kyle, awesome presentation, very comprehensive. I can sort of feel the value just in the key points, clarity and focus around what's important. One of the questions I've got, breaking down a little bit further on stories, do you delve into perhaps some of the lessons and the pitfalls and the hurdles that they've already faced in their personal lives, their careers, to really get to know them personally as well? I noticed that that's sort of another layer, and it's probably a little bit scary for some startups, but personally, I find that interesting. Where does that fit in your strategy and perspective and experience?
Yes, so it goes back to team. Listen, we all have had companies that have failed. We all have companies that have had dramatic failures or very quiet failures. You're not going to be the first if you tell me that. And I do want to know what you've done in the past. I want to know where you've come from. Were you in the corporate world and you were working in gaming and entertainment, and today you're doing something in esports? Were you in hardware before and manufacturing, and now you're building a consumer product? I want to understand your journey of where you've come from and where you are today. I'm not going to judge you solely based on a previous failure. I mean, unless you robbed everybody, then I've got a different situation. But I'm not going to judge you. But I do want to know those personal details because I want to get in your head. And that goes back to weathering the storms. I want to understand what did you learn from that failure? What did you learn from your past experience? What would you have done differently? And if anything, it'll be an open conversation, but it won't be a judgment.
Nice one. Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions? We have a hand down here if you could pass it. Thank you.
Thanks for that, mate. Super useful.
I love your mustache.
Thanks, man. November. So that was obviously really useful to hear what investors are looking for in startups and founders. What about if we flip it on its head?
Yeah.
And when people say we look for smart money, what should startups, entrepreneurs look for in investors?
Thank you. I will add that into my presentation for future reference. That's a great. So smart money versus dumb money. It's a very, very good question, a very good conversation. Most advisors, most mentors, and anyone else will tell you, always look for smart money, don't look for dumb money. As a founder, you're like, okay, sure, that sounds like a great strategy.
What about any money?
Yeah, well, you just write me a check. So smart money, the best way to put it, and from my own past experiences as well, smart money is money that comes with support. There's resources, there's additional guidance, there's introductions they can provide. They have a very good reputation. They can do follow-on. They can bring additional investors. Dumb money is just a random check. You have no idea who this person is. They have no recommendations. There's no one backing them up. It is literally just, hey, here, take my money. If someone comes up to you and says, hey, here, take my money, and there's no references, there's no nothing, first, that's dumb money. Instant category. Dumb. If you can't find out anything else about this person, they won't give you anything else, they won't give you any references, there's no support that you can see they will provide to you, they're still dumb money. If after you start building a relationship and they start to open up the kimono, start to show who their network is, that you start to see those references, you can start to bring them back into smart money. But smart money at the end of the day is positive for your company, it's supportive, and it comes with more than just a check. Does that help? Do you have any specific questions? No, I think that covers it. Okay.
Awesome. Please put your hands together for Carl Ellicott.